Hello and welcome to the Wolfchase Toyota Insider, the Memphis Tiger Network. I'm Jeff Private alongside Melissa McFerrin. Coach, we'll talk about the last two home games, kind of look at your longest road trip of the season. Two A-10 teams, St. Louis, which, boy, that program has changed in the 2 years we have not played them, and then George Washington, who has been a perennial top 25 team ever since Coach Sipsis has gotten there. Had a chance to win that game on Sunday. St. Louis really had to battle, and we talked about how St. Louis has changed. That's a team that we had played home and home for a few years since you had been there, and that had been a game where we knew it would be tough, but you could probably get the win. But when they came out to warm up the other day, I saw a completely different grade of athlete and size.
Right. They significantly upgraded their size. They went 6'4", 6'4", and 6'5". But really the kid that really made the difference for that team was their point guard, a sophomore point guard that we hadn't seen till we got on tape. And I think she may have been the best point guard we played against all year. We kind of picked our poison in that game, really felt like it was a game that if we could battle on the boards and if we could score in the paint, because we were concerned about that. Our post players have been so productive. But at the end of the day, their point guard was the one that really did the most damage.
And we talked about their size and inside. We talked about Stepanovic, who would be tough, but when they started moving the rotation, even though she may not have got the big points, she got a ton of rebounds, but they moved the rotation. It just seemed almost like you see in some of the higher level American Conference teams. They just start rotating those 6'3" and 6'4" post in.
That's right, when their sub came in at 6'4", and then the second sub came in at 6'5". But in any event, it was a game that we felt like for the most part of the game we played fairly well. Our goal was to stay even, at least even on the boards with them. This was a team that was out-rebounding their opponents by 8 at that point in time. We ended up out-rebounding them, outscoring them in the paint. We felt like the difference was going to be free throws, and we didn't shoot enough free throws to make that happen. And we also didn't shoot the ball very well in the second half. But that's an A-10 team also that, and we've talked about this, that the American Athletic Conference and the A-10 are kind of neck and neck in terms of quality of teams in women's basketball. They were picked in the upper echelon. We know that George Washington was picked to win that conference. So we were playing against two very quality teams, and at the end of the day, our shooting percentage in the second half really hurt us. Came
back, you played George Washington, you just mentioned last year, 29 wins, 15-1, A-10 champions. Have got to stub their toe the last couple of ball games, and that was a great game for the fans to watch. Unfortunately, they get the close win at the end. Had a chance early on, up by 16, but they just kind of chip away at things.
Well, I think anytime you have a team that rebounds the way that they do, they were the #1 team in the country in rebound margin, and we were very, very concerned about that going into the game with good reason. With some of our players back, with Bria Water-Cochran back, with Loisha Morris playing more minutes, we felt like we could step up our tempo, and we've wanted to do that since the early part of the season, but with some injuries and with our starting lineup, we'd gone to more zone type game plans. But we've gone back to our full court pressure, and it really hurt them and bothered them early in the game. We also came out really hot early in the game, shot the ball extremely well. We were able to set our press, but as they went through the game, I think they got more comfortable with our pressure, and they took advantage of it, not only in scoring against our pressure, but also in their offensive rebounding. And we got to the late part of the game, and again had some decent looks, but couldn't get them to go in. But ultimately, when a team out rebounds you by that much, eventually it's going to hurt. And it wasn't for a lack of effort by our players. 6'5" with truly a 6'7" or 6'9" wingspan. That really was the difference in the game going down the stretch.
I thought a big difference was had that big lead with about 3 or 4 minutes left in the first half. Wasn't a huge run. It was just one of those runs that put them in position. They went on a 9-2 run to close it, I believe, to about 8 points at the half.
Right. 7 or 8 points, I think, at the half. And that put them within striking distance. Now, we held that lead largely through the third quarter, but it was an up-and-down game. It was a very entertaining game, a very hard-played game. But the fact of the matter is they were scoring a lot, and we were still hitting shots at that point. The fourth quarter was a different kind of a game. We kind of pulled back our pressure because they were scoring layups or getting offensive rebounds on us, and it became a half-court game. We couldn't score at that point in time. And let's give them credit.
Yeah.
They were a very good basketball team going down the stretch. They had lost a game earlier in the week to Florida Gulf Coast, who is also a very good team, and I think they were very determined going down the stretch that they were going to win that basketball game.
Coach, you get ready for your longest road trip as far as how many days of the season. You'll leave on a Thursday, come back on a Wednesday, so it's a week-long road trip. Going to be two tough teams. Minnesota, who you played very close here last year. Central Michigan, who you beat here at the Fieldhouse last year. And we've seen Central at a tournament a couple of years ago, so not just playing them. We know how good they are, and we know how good Minnesota is.
Absolutely. Both very good teams. Both teams whose RPIs are just sky high right now. Minnesota a little bit different this year because they don't have the big inside presence, at least not yet. They've got one that they're trying to work in, but they're a team that loves to push it up the floor, take the first three. They want the score to get really, really high. They're going to try to slow you down on offense by playing a zone most of the game. And so they want to run fast on offense. They want to slow you down on defense. But they want the score to be really, really high. They've got 3 or 4 three-point shooters, and they're going to let them fly at any moment. Not so much different than Central Michigan. Central Michigan's got, they might man us a little bit more as opposed to zone. They might press a little bit. But they're going to be somewhat the same way, that they want to get the ball in the air. Both of these teams have had scores over 100 this year. So it's going to be interesting. Of course, we're going to want to speed them up a little bit with some pressure that we've talked about. But we've got to be smart about it too. We can't give up open threes.
And it's always interesting to see how a team plays once it gets that first week on Christmas break, because you've seen it go both ways. On one hand, they're probably relieved, school's out for a while, let's let it fly, and then sometimes they just seem like they've hit a brick wall because that last week has been filled with a couple of games and exams. So you hope it's we're out of school, let's let it fly.
I think finals week is a little bit different than it used to be. I think in college, finals week was that grind week. Now it's still that way, but I think some professors are giving finals the last week of class, the last day of class. I haven't seen that our players are really, really overloaded right now. So I'm gonna say that we should be fresh and rested. Finals will be done. We're traveling a day early just because of some flight issues and some travel issues. So we're gonna have a day in Minnesota to get acclimated. And so I'm going to say we're going to be ready to go.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thanks, Jeff.
Head Coach Melissa McFerrin, I'm Jeff Brightwell for the Wolfchase Toyota Insider on the Memphis Tiger Network.